I'm Greg Greenwood and welcome back to my studio. This video is part 2 of my Jewelry Designs from Nature series. I'm going to take one subject, a dragonfly, and design 6 different jewelry pieces. 3 using forged wires and 3 using sheet metal. I'll use my simple 5-step process in designing all of these pieces. 1. Take a photo of dragonflies. 2. Draw a sketch of part of the photo that catches my attention. 3. Decide what jewelry techniques do I know that I can use to simplify and or abstract my design. 4. Focus on simplifying and abstracting. And 5. Finalize my design to decide the amounts of materials and which parts should be made in which order. Let's take a look at these dragonfly designs. I love the entire shape of this dragonfly in this photo. So let's use the entire dragonfly shape and start drawing it and simplifying it. And what techniques could be used in this? I really think that forged wires would be excellent for this design. I love how the wings kind of flow and curl back onto themselves. And so maybe use a couple sterling silver forged wires for the entire design. Loop them around to make those wings and then bring them down back into the tail and the body of the dragonfly. Maybe use some small wires at the bottom to fill out that tail. So here it is with the 2 forged wires, the smaller wires making up that tail. A real fun flowing design. This photo of the dragonfly, I kind of like this body section here. Let's start zooming in on that and abstracting it and simplifying it and seeing what techniques could be used for this one. The more I start abstracting it, the more it definitely is lending itself to forged wires. And maybe have a frame around it with forged wires inside that frame. So let's maybe simplify those, put some nice forging on it, and it's kind of nice, but maybe what we could do is simplify that, forge it, and maybe duplicate it, put it on top of itself, and that will really make an interesting piece. Here it is with the forged wires, and I've made 2 frames and put them on top of each other, and the way that I had it, I kind of liked it a little bit more upside down. So flipped it on over, used a tube for the bail, and made a real complicated looking design out of something very, very simple. I absolutely love this wing of this dragonfly, so I'm going to concentrate on just the wing design and how can I simplify this and make it interesting and what techniques to use. So maybe I'll use forged wire on this, but because the wing is kind of sectioned off, it kind of lends itself to maybe like a little filigree type of work, or with small wires or other little pieces of bald shot put in there, and divide that up into little sections that could be really interesting when they're all put together. It could be a real nice total design. So we'll do that. We'll use the forged wires and little pieces, and then I can use the stone setting for a kind of a nice contrast between the two to balance the design off. So using those forged wires from the dragon's wing make a real nice, intricate, and complicated looking piece. I like the simple, symmetrical look of this dragonfly. Let's draw it out and try to keep it nice and symmetrical and simple design. It starts lending itself right away to sheet metal, and maybe those wings could be pierced with a jeweler's saw. So that's what I'll do. I'll keep it very simple and symmetrical, and maybe use some domes on the piece for the body itself, and maybe put a stone setting at the very end of the tail, keeping it very simple and symmetrical. A nice, clean-cut, small pendant. I love this photograph of this dragonfly, and I'll use the entire dragonfly for the design, making it very, very simple. And when I start drawing it, it starts lending itself to sheet metal and maybe a fold forming technique where I can put a T-fold down the middle to make the body and have the wings flow out of the body, and use an air chasing technique for some designs in the middle and put some texture on the wings. Very, very simple, straightforward design for a fold forming copper pendant. I like how the wings fold back on this dragonfly in kind of a nice V shape. And the little dots on the wings could be little design elements that we could use in our designs. So we'll start drawing this and sketching it out, and it starts lending itself to me to be using sheet metal. And we could use pieces of sheet metal that would overlap themselves. And if we're using sheet metal that's overlapping, those little design elements with the little dots, those could be rivets that could be holding the pieces of metal together. We use some wires coming down through the middle of the design for the body, and then maybe use some contrasting metals or textures. So let's use copper and silver and different textures on those pieces of sheet metal and rivet them together and make some fanciful little wires coming down the middle for the body of the dragonfly. A real fantasy looking piece with the contrasting metals, textures, and the neat rivets in there. Makes a real fun piece. I hope these examples of abstracting a dragonfly have given you inspiration for some ideas for your jewelry projects. Keep it simple. Take a photo, draw a sketch of part of the photo that catches your attention, decide what jewelry techniques that you know that you can use in your design. Focus on simplifying and abstracting, and finalize your design to decide the amounts of material and which parts should be made in which order. Make sure that you subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss any of my new videos. I'm Greg Greenwood, and I'll see you next time.